Hi everybody, we're going to move on to the next session now. So I'm going to invite Joanna and Leslie to the stage, who are going to start talking through some ideas around complaints.
Hello. Okay, are we on? Hello, good evening everybody. Hi, really nice to see you all tonight and thank you for joining us. So I'm Joanna and this is Leslie and we're going to talk to you a little bit about complaints and what we do to understand our complaints, resolve them and what we're doing to kind of improve our services all round. So I'm going to start talking to you a little bit about our complaints performance at the moment. So on these slides you can see we've got some graphs. So the top one here in the top left hand corner, we're talking about the number of complaints that we're receiving year on year. So you can see we're comparing over the last 3 years and one of our headline figures is that we are seeing gradual decrease in complaints since 2018 year on year. So you can see the latest, we're on around 1,005 we ended last year and that is a decrease on the last 2 years. So that's one of kind of our headline figures that's come out of our recent performance review. And then the other graph you can see here is to talk about the themes in our complaints. So what are we seeing, what are we hearing from our customers when they're telling us that there's something wrong? You can see we've got some coloured blocks and those big green ones are where the largest proportion of our themed complaints are sitting. And that is related to the theme of service delay. So what are we talking about when we're talking about service delay? It's around how long it takes us to resolve an issue when it's reported to us, or perhaps how long it takes us to come out and see you to assess an issue or make an appointment to get something sorted for you. And then the next most common reason that we are receiving complaints at the moment is around quality. So it may be quality of service that you've received, or it may be the quality of workmanship that has been carried out in your property, for example.
Oh. The next is also a continuation of performance. What we're showing you here is some of the KPIs, so the key performance indicators that we work with in the resolutions team. That's not off-putting. As you can see, there's a bit of a good story, bad story situation that we have here. So the first 2 KPIs you can see, which is average time to reach resolution and the average time to resolve a complaint, has increased. Now, there's a number of reasons associated with this. So we've already talked about receiving less complaints, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic challenges that we've experienced, we've had to hold on to them for longer. We're quite keen to keep complaints open until we've closed the loop, so to speak, until the customer is happy. And obviously, there were some situations where we couldn't go into a person's property to do the work that was needed to rectify. There were some situations where customers were nervous about us attending because of COVID, so they didn't want us to go in. And ultimately, it meant that we've kept hold of them for a little bit longer than we'd otherwise would. The good news element to this is you can see the percentage of cases resolved at first resolution has increased. Logically, that means the second stage and the third stage of our complaints process has decreased. And the really good news is that the customer experience, how we've been dealing with your complaints, has improved. So we just want to explain a little bit as to why that's happened. Obviously, we're very keen on getting the voice, and we'll touch on that a lot in this presentation, the voice of the customer and directing our efforts. And as a result of a lot of conversations, they wanted us to speed up the process. So what we did is we increased the training across the business so that people could, as soon as a complaint touched them, actually start the process of managing it instead of it going through the process of going into an inbox and being dealt with a bit later on. Then as a result of that, we also provided a budgetary allowance so that they had the power to obviously try and either provide compensation if it was warranted or authorise the additional above and beyond repairs, for example, so that we could try and start rectifying the relationship a little bit sooner. And obviously because of that, people are appreciative that, one, we've listened, and 2, we have actually improved the speed of agreeing with the resolution. And we want to continue that process as we go through.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Housing Ombudsman and the work that we're doing to understand what it is that they expect from us as a landlord and make sure that our service is fulfilling that. So last year in July, the Ombudsman published a complaint handling code. So that is a document which sets out best practice and what they expect of landlords when they are dealing with a complaint. And it also really drives a positive complaints culture, and that's something that we feel really strongly here about at Curo. We welcome complaints as an opportunity for us to understand what's not working and do the right thing to get issues resolved and actually learn from them so we can do better in the future. The other thing that the code document does is it does provide guidance for residents as well, so for you to understand what you can expect of your landlord when they are dealing with a complaint. So as part of that document that was published, something that all landlords were expected to do was carry out a self-assessment. So we did that. We compared our current policy and process against that code document and looked for areas where perhaps our process didn't quite match up with what they recommended and where we might need to make some changes, which is what then led to some of the changes that Leslie's mentioned in terms of changing how quickly we resolve complaints, so tackling them as early as possible within that process and getting them dealt with as quickly as we can. So as Leslie touched on, colleagues are very much empowered to deal with complaints at that first point of contact and to work as quickly as they can to agree a resolution and deliver that for the customer. So as part of this, what we are committed to doing is carrying on reviewing our process on a regular basis. So we will be reviewing that every 6 months to make sure that all of our processes are in line with what the Ombudsman are expected of us. And also it's published on our website. So our current assessment is published on the website if you are interested to see how we fared against the code of complaints. And that will be updated each time we review and update.
Just a little bit of additional information with the code. It's probably key to explain that it is a guidance. We don't have to report into the Housing Ombudsman with our assessment. They just expect us to do it and to put it on there. And we did recognise that one of the requirements which they preferred was to have 2 stages to the complaints. However, before the white paper came out, before we realised that, we'd already done this really good piece of work with the customers to ascertain that they wanted us to resolve things quicker. And we'd found out that the information we've already shared and the results, that the first resolution empowering our colleagues to make a difference as quickly as possible really works for our customers. And so we decided we wanted to keep it. And on the basis that we can't go over 3, they prefer 2, we have kept the 3 stages, but we've also communicated that with the Housing Ombudsman, and they're happy that there is a slight difference with it. And we'll continue to have lots of conversations with them as we go through. So obviously with the Charter for Social Housing, the white paper, it is very key that we improve the relationship with the Housing Ombudsman. The good news, and I like this one a lot, is that the volume of cases that have been escalated to the Housing Ombudsman has decreased year on year, which is good news because we've made it easier for people to complain and we've tried to improve things as we've gone along. So that's great. So the nice thing about the relationship with the Housing Ombudsman that we have at the moment is that we contact them more than they contact us, and we'd like it to continue that way. The elements that we obviously, which we recognise, is the whole making sure that the wider community know what the process is. Well, we've always signposted our customers to the Housing Ombudsman, but what we're going to do is make sure that we do that on a more regular basis, and it is very obvious at the beginning of the complaint that they have that as an option going forward. There are a couple of points that we're quite keen as well to actually happen. The Housing Ombudsman are trying to improve their own processes. So as part of the white paper, you may or may not have noticed that they're trying to reduce the time it takes to be heard. So at the moment, when our process finishes, the complaint gets signposted to an MP or councillor. It's called the democratic filter. And if they don't want to use that, then you have to wait 8 weeks before you can go to them and in order for them to hear your complaint. They want to get rid of that because apparently it puts people off. They can't, it's quite time consuming. People have lives. So they want to reduce that, and we're quite keen that that happens. And as soon as it does happen, we'll update our policy. And the other thing is, once upon a time, it took about 10 to 12 months to get a complaint dealt out within the Housing Ombudsman. They've pledged to bring that down to about 4 or 5 months this year, and they're pledging to bring it down to 3 or 4 months yet next year. So we're going to embrace these changes and update our policy as we go forward. But that is definitely a positive for the customers because it speeds up the resolution and the entire process.
Okay, so now to talk a little bit more about one of our other avenues to seek feedback and to learn from, which is our great resident engagement platform, which is our quarterly complaints review forum. So we have a fantastic group who join us on a quarterly basis. It's residents who take part in our conversations, and the purpose of the group is for them to review real complaints that we receive. So they review complaints that have been closed in the last quarter. They are selected at random and anonymised for privacy, but what they get to see is they see exactly what's happened from the very first day the customer has reported the issue to us and raised that complaint to the very last day where we agree the resolution and the complaint is closed. They get to see all of the interactions that we are undertaking during that process, the decisions that are made, and all of the input that we get from all of our teams in order to resolve a complaint. The purpose of the group is they review that, they tell us what they liked, what they didn't like, what they think we did well, and where they think, frankly, we could do a little bit better. And at the end of each complaint, they tell us, they give us a pass or a fail. So you can see there on the slide, last year we achieved an 86% pass rate on our complaint management. And that is, have we made the right decisions? Have we been fair in the decisions that we've made? So 86% is good, but we do want to be better. So we want to keep the momentum going with this group, get as much feedback as we can from them and from any of you in terms of what we can do better, what we can learn from, and how we can make changes to just keep improving our performance and our service to you. Another outcome of this group is our action plan that we've developed. So we take on board the feedback that the group give us. We account ourselves to actions and we take those away to the teams who have been involved in the management or the dealing of that complaint. A couple of examples of actions that we've taken away that the group have recommended to improve our service is that we now have fully transferred over to direct bank transfers of compensation payments. So quite a while back, we used to just pay these via cheque, which I'm sure you'll understand can be a lengthy process in itself. And that was really that was extending the length of the complaint for much longer than absolutely necessary. So they did recommend that we fully transfer over to that, the direct bank payments, and that is now what we do. There is still an option for cheque payments upon request from customers, but that's been a really good way for us to just, particularly at the point that we pay compensation, we are at the end of that complaint, we are at the point of resolution, and we want to make that as quick and swift as possible so that the customer really feels that we have done what we need to do and ended on that positive outcome for them and dealt with it swiftly. And then another action that we have taken away and implemented that I thought was really worth sharing was around what we do, what action we take when we have customers who disengage during our complaints process. So we do sometimes have customers who they stop all contact. We haven't managed to reach a resolution yet, but we no longer are hearing from them. And so now what we have implemented is carrying out full welfare checks on customers in those scenarios, particularly if we know there is a vulnerability within their situation, to make sure that they are okay. We are doing our duty as a landlord, but also to make sure that they are comfortable with the complaints process and have that open conversation as to how they want to move forward. So those are two examples of some really great things and positive outputs for our customers that have come from this group. And it's a group that we really value. We do really value the feedback. So on that note, I did just want to mention that we are actually running an open session tomorrow evening. So it's an open complaints review forum. It's at 6:30 tomorrow evening. And we're really keen to hear from you if you would like to be involved, if you're interested, or if you do think you could give us some really valuable feedback on our complaints process. We would love to hear from you. So let us know and we can send you the details if you would like to join.
Thanks, Jo. I just wanted to sort of focus on one main point before we go into the questions and answers section. we've talked a lot about the voice of the customers, and one thing that we're hearing a lot at the moment is that the speed of dealing with a complaint is not where it needs to be. People are frustrated, and it's almost like they're making another complaint on top of the complaint because they're unhappy that we haven't dealt with things quickly enough. So we understand the frustrations. What we've also recognised that there are some areas of the business that we focus on that probably aren't the right areas to focus on right now, and then we could pool our resource a little bit to try and move forward some of the complaints, move forward and improve the communication with our customers. Recently, the contact centre and the resolution team merged so that we've got additional resource in place to support the complaints that come in, quicker resolution. And we've also decided that we're going to start communicating with our customers better by pooling our resource. So we're going to use some of the contact centre guys to support the complaints. We're going to use some of the contact guys to start reviewing some of the repairs that we have and making outbound contact with our customers in order to stop them needing to have to chase us and to start managing the expectations, because we are still in a pandemic. Having said that, sympathy is reducing with our customers because it's gone on for so long and expectations have changed. So we register that we need to improve the relationships. We desperately need to hear from you what you think would make an impact on the improvements of the complaint management itself. But ultimately, we've made a decision as a business to start focusing our resource on the things that really matter to our customers, and to try and get back onto a better level of complaint management, quicker, and getting more results out there for you. I just want to plug how you can contact through to us. So we've got My Curo, which is our self-serve platform. We've got new functionality on there that allows you to log a complaint at your convenience. So anytime we can process that for you. You can still email us. We've got our webpage, which will guide you or signpost you through to the complaints process. And you can also give us a call. But ultimately, we're in a position now, culture-wise at Curo, where you can tap anyone that represents Curo on the shoulder and ask them to take notice of your concern and your complaint, and ultimately they can register it for you now, and we can try and get a resolution for you. So yeah, there's lots of options, and hopefully we've made it as easy as possible for you to contact through to us. So, any questions? I was hoping for a round of applause, if I'm honest. Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
I was joking. Okay. Are there any questions?
We do have a few on here, so we'll start with those, and if anybody in the room wants to chip in after that, please do. So we do have a couple. The first two are fairly similar in nature. So why is Curo reactive and not proactive, and why is no one accountable when actions are incorrect? Why do complaints take so long to resolve? The other question is, why does it take so long to get answers? So I think we have touched on some of that in this presentation, but there are a few challenges that we're working through at the moment. So to give some context as to our complaints levels and the length of time that it's taking us to resolve. So when the pandemic first hit last year, we saw a significant decrease in contact levels when it came to complaints. So the numbers that we spoke about earlier, throughout that year, where we usually experience quite a steady flow of complaints throughout each month, it's fairly spread out each month, we saw a vast reduction for a few months when the pandemic first hit. And then as we started to adjust to the new way of life and the way that we were living, we opened back up some of our services, some of our services that hadn't been available during that time. We did then see quite a stark increase, and that was probably where customers had potentially held on to issues that had been bothering them during that sort of 3-month window, and then they got in contact with us. So we did see quite a peak in demand, and our team levels, they haven't changed, our resource levels haven't changed. So we're working really hard to work through quite a large volume of contact all at one time, and that has resulted in these delays, and that's the honest answer as to why it is at the moment taking us longer than we would like, and that's what we've touched upon when we've talked about the end-to-end time of a complaint and the time to agree a resolution. So that's the honest answer, and we're very much working towards absolutely improving that, and like Leslie says, pooling resources, merging with the contact team and the complaints team together to really all work together to get these issues resolved sooner rather than later.
What we've also noticed as well is that we've used the pandemic as an excuse. And although it's a legitimate one, it's annoying now. We understand that. We want to try and move away from that. What it has taken our leadership group is to make some real decisions on actually we've got all these different focuses and all these different things that we want to try and achieve for our customers. But realistically, now that everything's back up and running and it's just staring us in the face, we now have to pick the ones that mean the most. And it's a challenging thing because we're so proud of trying to provide a really good performance. We want to do the best. That we've recently decided that the pooling of resources is the way forward. We know that people want an update on the complaint. We know that people want to be communicated with. So it's definitely the strategic element of what we're doing is definitely about communication. And that means there are things that are going to take a bit of a dip in performance. You might have to wait slightly longer to get your phone call answered. So my suggestion is use my Curo. However, we need a little bit of patience with some of the things that the customers are telling us it's not as important that we answer the phone call really, really quickly. So we'll answer it slightly longer, but we'll deal with 3 complaints as a result. And that's where we are at the moment. We're trying to get the best balance so that we can get results, so that we are accountable, so that we do improve our performance. And it's a stage-by-stage process. Oh, we've got a hand. Oh, we need a microphone.
I don't need a microphone.
Oh.
You do? Okay, sorry. I'm on a few of the groups with tenants and stuff like that. And one of the things over the last 2 years that I've been involved in that's come up quite a bit is, on a complaint side of things, is over-promising and underperforming on that. Have you been able to address that situation?
We are starting to address the situation by understanding the granular detail. So we don't know when we've over-promised or we're underperforming until we do an audit trail when it comes to our complaints. So what we've asked for our guys to now do as standard is really get the audit trail. So we've got the granular detail of what happened and how it happened. The element that I think we need to focus on now is that previously, even with the forum, getting information on what we can do to improve things is great, but we're not doing anything spectacular with that information. It's almost like quite localised bits of changes.
It seems to me like an individual is making that decision to overpromise and underdeliver. But is there being, again, I don't know how the inner workings work, but are they getting told, okay, if that comes in, you can tell them X amount of weeks, or are they kind of doing it by the fly, by the seat of their pants, or how is that? Is there a structure?
So yes, we have a complaints policy with a matrix in it on what we do, how we do it, what we can do, the budgetary restraints, if any. It's within our gift to try and rectify a situation. What we found is that people are so worried about making the wrong decision, or they want to please someone, that they do overpromise or they make the wrong decision. But getting through that and understanding that information is all to do with this audit trail. You've obviously got to remember that if we don't satisfy someone and they go to the Housing Ombudsman, the Housing Ombudsman is going to ask exactly the same questions as the customer. Mm-hmm. Why did it go wrong? What was the reason behind it? What are you doing to rectify the situation? So by default, we've got to have that information available anyway. So the answer to your question, although that was a long version, was we're getting there with that. Right. It's definitely a learning curve. We don't want to overpromise, and if we do overpromise, then we'll honour the promise. That's what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. But it's making sure that there's a consistent approach within the organisation, and that's where communication comes in.
People would rather hear it's going to take 4 weeks than get told it's going to take 1 week, because 1 week and a day they will be going, what's going on? But if they told 4 weeks up front, they'll sit and wait 4 weeks. That's just human nature.
You say that, but then we get complaints because they're not happy with the 4 weeks. But I get your point. It's a valid
They
one.
might not be happy, but if they're told that's what it's going to take, rather than a week and then get messed around.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
This is why the forum that we have is so important, because it's exactly the kind of feedback we're getting. And we need to be doing something with it. And that's exactly where it comes into play with the pooling of the resource and understanding what it is we can do going forward.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, we've got a couple more. So a comment here, I've reported letters stolen from our box mail. You said it's not Curo's responsibility rather than working together to get it sorted. So we do have scenarios where we have to have conversations around where responsibility lies for certain things that are going on. We are very open to collaborating and signposting and working with other agencies or other parties to help get things resolved. But that is, there are elements of that's where our policy comes in, and that's why we are, we're held to account by the Ombudsman and our regulator to make sure that we stand by our policies.
There's limitations as well, Joe. So if someone contacts us and says that someone stole my post, if they've got no idea who that person is, exactly what is it are we going to be able to do that, unless they can tell us who the person is, we're just going to go, oh, that's terrible, I'm really sorry. There may be options that we can do. So sometimes we've put cages over letterboxes, or we changed our processes. But sometimes it is a situation where people are expecting us to do things that it's not within our gift, or we have no legal power over some people's behaviours, for example. We have a tenancy agreement, that's something we can work with. So I think it's an education piece. It's an adult conversations that we need to have with some people. We don't want to just turn people away. So like Joe says, we will signpost, we will provide you with the information that will maybe help you, but sometimes we're not the ones that can resolve it. And it's having the relationship with people where we establish that kind of setup as well.
Thanks, Leslie. And then one more comment here from Sue. So in the experience of many customers, Curo do not act fast enough and try to shut them down too early. It's not about figures on paper. It's about how customers feel. And I fully agree with that. It's absolutely about how our customers feel. And, we have complaints that are potentially about the scale of complaints is so different, it's so varied, but regardless of what scale your complaint is at, it's absolutely about how you feel, and we do acknowledge that. So although we have talked about figures today, and that's really to give you a sense of the measures that we're working to and the things that are driving us to improve, but I would love to just assure anybody who has a complaint or who has had a complaint that we are very much taking the approach of it's absolutely about how you feel, and we'll use your voice, and we will be your voice to the business to get the resolutions that you want. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that we do fully agree with that.
It's also part of the code. Part of the code is that if someone shows they don't even have to tell us it's a complaint, but if they share their dissatisfaction with us and there's something we can do to support or we need to investigate it, we need to do it. So yes, we genuinely care. I wouldn't work for Curo if that wasn't a thing. But also, we are meant to follow a code, and we pride ourselves on doing that. We've just done the assessment, and we're showing to be there with it. So we take everything seriously. That, like, again, there are some limitations to what it is we can do, and sometimes when we share that with people, it's not enough for them, and there's some things that we're never going to win, but we'll do our best on the journey there. Yeah. Anything else, RJ?
No. Any more from the floor?
Has this been good? Yeah.
Okay.
Beans.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Here we go.
Yes, you may go. Yes.